Hey everybody, it's Briante at Georgia Conservation Voters. I am really excited to have you here with us on Earth Day 2021. You could literally be anywhere else on the planet, but you are here with us, and so I really appreciate that. What we have decided to do is to summarize all of the bills that impact environment and climate here in the state of Georgia. These bills came up during this year's legislative session. So for those of you who don't know what the legislative session is, every year, all of Georgia's state senators and state representatives, people that you elect, they meet for what's about 3 months at the beginning of the year, and they come up with all kinds of laws or fix old laws that have lots of impacts on basically everything in your life, but also the environment. And so we had a couple of interesting bills come up this year. I'm going to kick us off with one big bill that we've all been hearing a lot about that is impacting voting rights in Georgia. But what follows is a series of videos from me and my teammates, all of the bills that we think are exciting or were significant in this session. So I really appreciate you for being here with us, and stay tuned. Hey everybody, it's Briante again with Georgia Conservation Voters. This is the second video in our Earth Day series, giving you all some updates about important legislation that came up during this year's legislative session. So the first bill I'm going to talk to you about, you probably already have heard about. It is Senate Bill 202, Georgia's new voting law. So this is making waves across the nation as other states are also passing these types of laws. And this is in response to basically all-time high turnout during this last election cycle, even in the middle of the pandemic. One of the main reasons why, especially here in Georgia, people were able to vote was because of absentee ballot voting. It allowed them to cast their vote safely and securely from home. And so this legislation goes after absentee ballot voting. One of the main things it does is shorten the timeline you have to request and return your absentee ballot application. And so it is certainly going to be a reason why some people don't vote. And also this new bill imposes new ID requirements. Those ID requirements are going to be particularly burdensome on communities of color. They've been shown to be such in the past. And it also goes so far as to stop people from being able to give out food and water to people who are waiting in long lines. And there's been study after study that shows that the communities that experience long lines at the polls are typically communities of color. And so that is really alarming, very concerning, something that we will absolutely make sure we're doing our part to communicate about. So Senate Bill 202, we're upset that that bill passed. It was signed into law by the governor, and we're going to do the work to make sure communities know about these changes and can still vote. So stay tuned. We've got a few more bills coming at you, okay?
No one likes it when people mess with our money. It doesn't matter whether it's friends or family, our money is ours. That's why passing House Bill 511 was so important. For years, the General Assembly was taking money that was earmarked for specific projects like cleaning up tire waste disposal, and instead putting that money into the general fund instead. As a result, projects and departments meant to address these issues were rather, instead of addressing these issues, we're left languishing, severely underfunded, and without the resources to combat these problems. House Bill 511 changes that. Monies and fees that were nominally supposed to be spent on specific issues are finally being spent in the way that they're supposed to be. No more pilfering the tip jar to pay for other projects and expenses. Now this money is being used properly and in the way that it was meant to be used. We're finally going to be able to clean up those illegal tire dumps, expand transit, and do so much more. We're finally restoring the trust in trust funds.
Hey y'all, back again to talk about some climate and environmental policy that came up this past legislative session. One of the bills I want to talk about is SB 104. Senate Bill 104 is a plastic ban bill, essentially, in that it would prohibit major grocers from the default being plastic bags. Instead, they would have to switch to paper products or compostable products. And so that's a really important bill because we as humans consume way too much plastic. Like some studies show that we consume about a credit card's worth of plastic. They also really hurt our waterways, such as like the Chattahoochee and other major rivers in the state. And so this plastic ban bill would help decrease our plastic consumption, but it also would protect our waterways from the amount of plastic bags that end up in them. So that's SB 104. Though also another good bill would be SB 224, a bill that will require the Georgia Building Authority to only produce like paper and compostable products from the cafeteria. So that's another way that we decrease our consumption of plastic. Unfortunately, neither of those bills passed in both chambers. Hopefully, we will see it again.
Let me ask you a rhetorical question. Do you like trash? That's an easy answer for most people, I would say. We don't like trash, right? We don't like it in the streets. We don't like it in the sidewalks. We don't like it in our neighborhood. We just don't like seeing trash. Now, let me ask you something else. Do you know how dangerous trash, accumulated trash, can be? It's not just an unsightly thing, something disgusting to look at. It smells, it destroys the environment. It's a breeding ground for pests and disease. It's just a health hazard in general. Worse, they can also leach dangerous substances like chemicals or metals into local areas. Landfills, as you know, are places where trash goes to get dumped. And these are especially ugly or undesirable. And, they can be particularly dangerous because there can be a buildup of dangerous chemicals or metals that can really contaminate the land around it. That's why House Bill 557 is so important. This bill would have prohibited new landfills from being constructed within 50 miles of existing landfills and placed limits near groundwater recharging areas, as well as providing buffer zones around landfills, already existing landfills, for that matter. However, the General Assembly refused to take this up and take up this bill, 557, and as a result, even though this bill was introduced by Representatives Tyler Smith and Dale Washburn, there was no vote on it. It remains off the table. At GCV, our mission is to fight environmental issues. And so, we're really disappointed by this decision, but we hope that the next legislative session next year, they'll take it up and help pass this bill and make this into a reality.
Hey guys, Miles here again, and I'm going to tell you about HR 52. House Resolution 52 did successfully pass, and it created a committee to study lead poisoning in children in Georgia. This is really important because we all know what can happen when you're exposed to lead and through lead poisoning, but especially in our children, it's extra not good. This can lead to cognitive disorders as well as impairment in growth and development within our children. So this is really something we want to look out for and be aware of. Lead poisoning can leak into our groundwater and into our drinking water. It's not just from lead pipes, also from sludge, from gasoline that used to contain lead, and also industrial runoff can contain lead, as well as coal ash also contains mercury and lead. But this bill is specifically talking about lead poisoning within our children, and it's something that we really want to check out, and we're really happy that the bill did pass and that something's going to be done. It's been found in neighborhoods, especially underrepresented Black and brown neighborhoods, where a lot of these factories were put because they just didn't care what happened to the community. So we definitely want to get this checked out and figure out and help the next generation avoid these issues.
Hey y'all, back again to talk about some climate and environmental policy that came up this past legislative session. Another bill I want to bring up is HB 279. House Bill 279 is a bill that will require local governments to post environmental reports on their city website. So that would mean if a city, if there's development in a city and it would cause like air pollution or problems to our waterways or any type of like environmental compliance report that a city has or can obtain, they would be required to post that to their website for transparency for their constituents and for people to see and engage with. This is a really important piece of legislation because so often people are in cities with bad air quality or with emissions problems, and they don't know until it's too late or until there are health impacts that are adverse and hurting the community. So this bill would make sure that there's a proactive way that cities and constituents can engage with the environmental impacts that development or different buildings would have in their community.
Hey guys, it's Miles with JCV. I'm a digital organizer, and today I want to talk about House Bill 647. House Bill 647 would have required groundwater to be monitored at coal ash ponds for 50 years. This is really important because coal ash is extremely deadly and can contain toxic metals like mercury and lead, and it's really bad if it gets into your drinking water and into your groundwater. So the coal companies would have had to monitor these coal ash ponds. Millions of tons of coal ash are dumped into these ponds each year by the 5 coal companies, the coal plants here in Georgia, and these groundwater waters are just not being monitored, and this is really happening in underrepresented communities. So we definitely want to give a voice to those communities and stop the dumping of coal ash, and also being monitoring for 50 years would have been great. It did pass in the Georgia House, but it was not voted on in the Senate, unfortunately. So hopefully we're thinking that next year this is going to be voted on and hopefully will pass. So thanks so much. Tune in for some more info about House bills this year with our JCV Earth Day coverage. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Hey everybody, it's Briante at Georgia Conservation Voters coming at you with one more important update on environmental legislation. This bill is House Bill 339. House Bill 339 would have created an Environmental Justice Commission, and this commission would have oversight over projects that might come into communities of color and lower income communities and negatively impact them. So for those of you who aren't familiar with environmental justice, basically after years of organizing to try to solve environmental problems and also doing research on environmental issues, we have found that environmental pollution and burdens from other negative activity that impacts the environment usually shows up in Black communities, Hispanic communities, Asian communities, Indigenous communities, and communities that are lower income. So this bill would create a commission that would protect communities from those projects. They would have to make sure that they were mitigating any potential health concerns or other burdens that would be placed on communities. The bill also protects any person from being discriminated against and receiving state funding from state programs. So they can't be discriminated by race, age, or gender, or any other identity things. So that particular bill is really exciting. It did not pass. It was introduced, but hopefully the Georgia General Assembly will take it up during next year's session. So stay tuned. We have several more bills coming your way.
Hey y'all, happy Earth Day. I'm here to talk to you about some climate and environmental policy that came up in this past legislative session. One of the first bills I want to talk about is HB 150. House Bill 150 is a bill that would prohibit local government entities from banning a utility service on the basis of type of energy or source of energy, which all of that means is it's a ban on a ban. So if a city says we want to be 100% renewable energy, all of our buildings, a lot of our public housing run purely on renewable energy, no gas, they would be prohibited from doing so under this legislation. If also a city wants to say, hey, we don't want any of our energy to come from coal, we don't want any of our energy to come from a harmful energy source, they would also be prohibited from doing that also. So HB 150 is a bill that passed both chambers and is on the governor's desk. And we ask that folks ask the governor to veto HB 150 in support of our movement towards a renewable future, but also in support of the Georgians that need clean and renewable air for better air quality. Hey y'all, back at it again to talk about some environmental and climate policy that came up this past legislative session. I want to talk about SB 180. SB 180 is a ethylene oxide bill. If you live near the Cobb or, Smyrna, Covington area, you are likely familiar with the problem around ethylene oxide. Ethylene oxide is a chemical used to sterilize medical products. However, when released into the air, can cause a number of health impacts. And so SB 180 provides a lot more regulation and transparency to the process of emitting ethylene oxide, such as monitoring. There needs to be an air sampling plan. Also, if there's a third party that does the air sampling for the emissions of ethylene oxide, releasing the name of that party, making sure there's a lot more public comment and engagement with the public in regards to what the Environmental Protection Division does around the air sampling collection. A lot of the analysis and reporting should be released to the website for the public to see, should also be shared with Board of Commissioners and local government, so that way they also know. So in summary, this bill is to make sure that there are a lot more provisions around the emissions of ethylene oxide, but also a lot more transparency, so that way if there is a leak or something that goes wrong, the people in the community can know and know how to engage. So that's SB 180 that unfortunately did not pass this past legislative session, but hopefully we will see it again.
Hey everybody, it's Briante at Georgia Conservation Voters here with one more update on important environmental legislation that we saw this year. This is House Resolution 70, and this resolution was sponsored by Kim Schofield. It is a 100% clean energy commitment by 2050 for the state of Georgia. Georgia has a real opportunity to lead on clean energy. We already have a lot of solar industry in the state. We have solar cell manufacturing plants. We even recently got the green light on an electric vehicle battery plant here in the state. And electric vehicles are going to be an important part of our transition to an emissions-free future. So we want those vehicles to be powered by clean energy. We want everything to be powered by clean energy. Renewable solar and wind is abundant in our state. And this resolution is a step in that direction. It's a way of signaling that this is the type of future that we want, one that's powered by clean energy, that's emissions free. And so, yeah, we really appreciate that the bill got introduced. It ultimately did not pass. It can be taken up next year in next year's session, and we hope that legislators will have a conversation about what the energy future in our state looks like. And so, yeah, stay tuned. We have some more bills coming for you.